All right, so I wanted to start just a little bit of clarification on what a raised bed is, what it's not, what a container garden is, what it's not. Okay, so we have both here. We have both raised beds and we also have raised containers, if you will. All right. Anybody want to guess what the difference? If you've been to one of my classes, you should know this answer, right? This is a container because it has a bottom. Thank you. If it has a bottom, it's considered a container. I don't care if it's on the ground. Okay, it's really a container, and that impedes drainage. So the way we grow in them, the kind of mix we use is going to be different. A raised bed has continuous contact between the growing medium in the bed and the surrounding, or the grade below it, the soil beneath it, okay? So it's just kind of one continuous system, all right? And so this is kind of an anomaly here, but these have, this has a bottom, right? So drainage is going to be very important in this. Obviously, if you dump a bunch of soil in here, it's just going to sour in a heavy, rainy event, right? These over here, they're containers. They're up off the ground. Even though they kind of look like beds, that'd be more of a container. So we're going to demonstrate both systems in here. So we have themes here as we go to the east. We've got metal, we've got wood, we've got plastic, we've got recyclables, and then we've got stone, concrete, whatever. Let's start here. Let's talk a little bit about the hay bales. A very simple type of gardening. Is this really a raised bed or a container? It's kind of one of those anomalies. A lot of people like doing this because it's instant. You can just throw these beds up and grow in them. And I say that, you have to treat them first. This is a typical system where we have some beds. We're going to wet the bales. We're going to add a little nitrogen to them to get them to start composting. Otherwise, if we fertilize this and plant straight into this, the bales are going to heat up and kill the plants. So we've got to compost that a little bit. We get a pre-treatment, and then we can plant right into that. There's some excellent resources on doing this. You can either plant right into the bale after it's treated, or you can cover it with the potting mix and plant into the potting mix. This is typically used when you seed. Just seed right into that, and the roots will grow down. Usually if you're going to transplant, you're going to have to dig out a little bit of the straw or hay and then stick the transplant down into the bale, okay? Now this particular thing here is nothing but a bed, right? We just surrounded it. Obviously that can be as long as you want, and then you fill that with your potting medium, or your growing medium, not necessarily potting, because that is a true bed. It drains right to the soil. A lot of folks will, after a season, compost the bales, and they'll put the compost back into the new bed, which is formed with new bales as the border, right? Because these won't last but a half a year, and they're gone if you're gardening in them. The nice thing about straw is it's pretty weed-free. There's no disease in this. Usually you hardly ever find any plants that have root rot in them because this stuff is kind of inert. But it's straw. There's no nutrient in it, right? So you have to add your nutrient, whether it be organic, compost, or something like Miracle Grow, a soluble complete fertilizer, or even some granular complete fertilizer. All righty? Kind of popular, kind of a renewable, recyclable kind of way to grow plants. All right. Now, let's move on to some of this other stuff. Now, if your construction skills are limited, and you'd rather just go buy something and have an instant container or a bed, then this is kind of what you want, right? You just buy it, set it up, level it, put your growing mix in it, cut some holes in it if it's a container, and start growing in it. Depends on if you have more money or more time. A lot of folks like to use their hands, like to build things. They can save quite a bit of money if you build your own. Otherwise, you can buy kits. A lot of these kits that you're going to see in here are going to be between $250, $300. Some of them I would not buy. Again, we bought some of them just to have there to show folks. They're already destroyed. They break down. The wind will get them. You lean up against them, they break. Unfortunately, they look nice, on the internet, the web page, but when you actually start growing in them, they're junk, okay? You're not getting your money's worth. You'd be better off if you built your own. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. All right, so these are just some watering troughs. Some people will treat this with some type of bed liner. I don't know if I do it. I just use it up and trash it, and go get another one if you wanted to use these. All right, let's move on over here. Anybody want to guess what this is? What material this is? It's heavy grade, high density polyethylene, looks like. And it's used a little differently here than what it's manufactured. This is actually septic line. The water runs through that, and it will run through these little grooves, your sewage. What we've done is, I just went down to the plumbing store, bought a couple of them, and David, one of our technicians, put this together. It doesn't need a liner. You just fill it up with some soil and grow in it. You could set it on the ground, but we wanted to have it up a little bit, so he built these legs for it. This is about $150. Like they're $30 or $40 per unit. They snap together, the ends go on, and then the lumber. It's between $120 and $150, but that'll last a while. It aerates. It drains really well, but you will need to use a potting mix in this, not a garden soil, right? It's a container. You need a little lighter mix, all righty? This is Veg Truck. This is a unit that you can purchase. I believe this is about $250. And if you look at the quality of construction, guys, I think it speaks for itself. I'm not buying it for myself. I'm probably going to get a lot of letters from the company since this is on YouTube, but I just don't think the quality is there for the price. But it's a free country. You buy what you want. People ask me all the time, what should I put in my raised bed in terms of growing? Just a good loam soil, guys. That's the cheapest, best thing to use, the less expensive. Cheap doesn't have the right. Okay, a sandy loam or a silt loam, that's what the majority of your growing mix needs to be for a raised bed. Then you can amend it with other more expensive, amendments. Compost, peat moss, coconut coir. You can go buy some split bags, some old potting soil. Sometimes you get a good deal on them. When you find a pallet at the end of the year that's split open, you can mix that with the soil. That's okay. Organic matter is good. It's just that you don't need to grow in just straight organic matter. Some soil's okay, and that works, and it's cheaper. Just do that. Some soil's contaminated. If it's got, nematodes or whatever, if you know that to be the fact, stay away from it. Weed seed, if it's full of Bermuda grass, you might want to have that control before you add the soil from a Bermuda grass pasture in this. Okay, just some common sense kind of things. Let's go. Okay, anybody know what this is? Yeah. I've seen quite a few of these actually. Sea purlin, not a bad material. Of course, it's metal. It will rust, so if you could paint it, that adds to the cost, but it's very sturdy. If you're good with a welder, you have a chop saw, you can really make the corners fit nice. Our maintenance crew put this together for us. It's strong. I like it. I'm not going to tell you what it costs because you can get this sea purlin sometimes bent up or whatever, or a bad piece, so you might get a deal on it, but not a bad deal. But again, what are your construction skills? Do you have the chop saw? Do you have a welder? Do you have the drill that you need to put the hardware together? If that's the case, if you like building things, try something like this. This will be around a lot longer than some of that other stuff you buy off the internet, all right? Here's just a regular landscape timber. This is our wood lot here. These go together pretty good. Now, some people object to having treated material, but the new material they use to treat the wood is not as toxic to folk. I mean, the old chromated copper arsenic is no longer put in used as a wood preservative. So this stuff is fine, and it's you can build it any shape. That's the thing I like about wood. Most people have the ability and the equipment to cut the wood to any dimension they want. It's readily available. What are these things, like $4 or $5 a piece? I don't know. I haven't checked them lately, but you can see they can run into a little bit of money, but it's still one of the most preferred construction materials that people use in the garden. Just treated landscape timbers, okay? All right, so this is a purchased product. These are all recycled. We try to do a lot of recycling here. These are actually more containers. Actually, this is a bed. The bottom is open. So you could put regular garden soil in here and amend it. It's just a box with the, this is a heavyweight landscape fabric that won't break down. It's one of the better ones you can buy, so it's got a 20-year life. You just don't want to get into the side of it with your tiller, you know. It's kind of touchy. And this one is a container. It's like a V-shaped with the sides held together with straight panels here. And it allows you to get your foot underneath it, so you can get right here. It's very comfortable to use. Doesn't cost much, but do you have the ability to do this? Some people cannot do that, and that's fine. You get your carpenter friend to put that together, to cut it up. David did this. He added a few pieces of lumber to square it up, to make it solid. Pretty good, okay? You notice we've got a potting mix in this one for drainage. Of course, this is the railroad ties. Typically, they're okay to use to grow food in. Now, I wouldn't grow carrots right on top of it, you know, root crops that could grow down into some of the crevices in that. But for just growing crops in that, I think you're okay. But brand new ties, no. If they're oozing creosote, stay away from them. Okay, that's not a good thing. All right, we've got some cedar planks. We went with 2-inch instead of 1. Very expensive wood. It supposedly lasts. I personally, if I even used any kind of wood that wasn't treated, I don't care if it's cedar or whatever, I'm going to treat it. And if you're not into using chemical preservatives, you could treat it with linseed oil. Just soak it. Otherwise, some other kind of Thompson's water seal or whatever to extend the life of that. I really would consider that if you're using any kind of wood. All right. Now let's move on to some rubber. I was looking for a material that would last forever and that was cheap. So we hit on the idea of just using tires. And so why don't we use them, recycle them? And so we hit on the idea of making rubber lumber out of them. And so we just cut them apart, put them together. And this particular bed is more of a commercial style. We used to have hundreds of feet of these things, thousands of feet. And we would grow crops commercially kind of in these. Work really well. People ask, can you buy that? No, that's not the intent. The intent is to make it yourself. If you had to pay somebody to cut all that up, you wouldn't be saving any money, right? This one back here is just a little higher, the same kind of concept. It's 20 inches, this one is 8. You'll notice the pockets on the side that I used to insert the rebar to hold the borders up. They also serve as a nesting site for my ground cover, right? You just twist them. You roll up the landscape fabric with the little piece of lath, and you insert it in that groove, and that holds it. The nice thing I like about this is that you can take a weed eater along the bottom of this and keep that edged, and it's not going to hurt the bed at all, okay? These are tires that we've stacked. This one is exactly like this. I just got it surrounded with wood, but the base of it is a tire. This is a bed. The soil goes all the way to the surface of the grade, right? And you just add junk soil, and then as you get about 18 inches from the surface, I add some good soil to that. All right, it's a little bit better for the plants. This could be used both ways. This is just a little insert, and I transform the bed into more of a container. So I've got a false bottom in this, and I've got 2 tires there for my base. So I just set this down, and then I just put my potting soil in that, and then that's good for most plants, okay? A little bit more traditional stuff. You can use the wide block, cinder block, or the narrow 4-inch block. It's a little difficult to level. We didn't take quite enough time to level this properly, but you see how that works. One word of caution: if you're going to use block and you're going to use cement, what are you going to set those on? If you cement them together, you're going to put them on gravel? Or are you going to put them on a footing? Definitely a footing. Otherwise, they'll crack open. You need to pour the footing. So these are all dry stacked. all right? And we put a little gravel in there, and it's not the nicest looking bed, neither are the rubber lumber, but they're functional, very inexpensive. And of course, this is more landscaping type of stone retaining wall. It kind of looks like a fire pit, but you get the idea. We went over that really quick, right? As Dr. Oda said, this is a work in progress. We've only filled up a fourth of this. We'll add more stuff. You're welcome back in a year or two when we do this again. Hopefully we'll have more. And we'll actually have plants in some of these, right? That's the idea. So we can see how the plants are doing. But like he said, we only had the gravel delivered Tuesday. And we did most of this work yesterday and today, putting these beds together. So if I fall over dead, it's because I'm exhausted, right? And that's why probably I can't talk right now.